This interview is with the great Becky Storrie. She's a lovely Manx woman. We've had her compatriot Tyler Hannay on as a previous guest. We've also had her teammate at DSM Firmenich-Post NL, Pfeiffer Georgie, as a former guest. So it's been amazing to hear Becky talk about her career so far and how she ended up with Team DSM, as I'll call them, on the Women's World Tour. I think they're a great team at developing riders, and it's clear she kind of agrees, and you get to hear a bit more about it. So enjoy. Hi, Becky. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I hope you're okay too.
Yeah, things are going pretty nice. The sun's out for the first time in ages, which is a nice feeling. It's all good. I guess an easy way to start is to ask, like, how did you get into cycling? Obviously, you are from the Isle of Man. I assume that has quite a role to play.
Yeah, no, I feel like my pathway into cycling was a little bit different from most of my teammates or a lot of the girls that I raced against. I would say I came into it quite late.
Okay.
I mean, as you said, being from the Isle of Man, cycling's massive over there. That and motorsport is like the two things we're most famous for, I would say. So, and it's always something on two wheels. But yeah, no, when I was younger, I always grew up like swimming. So that was like the first sport I did was swimming, for as long as I can remember, like really, really young. So I swam for the island and then did that all through to my teens. And then when I was 15, we had like a local triathlon on the island, and I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. And just got absolutely hooked on the triathlon bug, which most people do. They do, and they're like doing Ironmans and all this crazy stuff. So yeah, I got hooked into triathlon. I did that for a number of years. That actually got me a scholarship at the University of Stirling, so I could train at their performance centre there. And then unfortunately, at the end of my first year, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. So I had basically kind of a year out. I stayed at uni, but a year out of sport. I wasn't able to do triathlon really anymore. Obviously, managing the three disciplines is hard enough when you're fit. Never mind when you're sick. So when I was recovering from that, the easiest thing I found to do was cycling, because it wasn't heavy on my body, like running is, and I didn't have to get up super early at like 4:30, 5 in the morning to go swimming. And I've always loved it. I've always loved riding my bike, but with triathlon, you can only dedicate a certain amount of time to each discipline. So I kind of fell into it from there. And also being ill from triathlon, I lost the passion for it, unfortunately. And I thought I need something that I can start completely, a blank slate. And I loved like the very, very fast progression that I could make in cycling, because I was suddenly giving it 100% of my time. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up just cycling.
Wow. And now you get to follow in the steps of, quite amazing people. Obviously the big ones like Tim Kenyick, obviously Cav, like it would go without saying his name. I was going to do a joke and say the headliner being Tim. He happens to be one I've raced. There's I'll always remember his name, even if he's not that well known by non-cyclists. But yeah, that's kind of incredible, that journey that you took. Just out of interest, where was the triathlon? Because I've had the good fortune of being on the island. Like I did the youth tour just once, but because we went to Douglas, Peel and Ramsey, I think were the three locations of each stage. So whereabouts was the triathlon?
The triathlon was in Ramsey, and they still do it every year. They have like a sprint triathlon in May, and then they do like an Olympic standard distance one in, I think, like August, September time. I never did that sort of distance because I was only like 15. I always just did the sprint distance, and that was long enough for me.
Yeah, sprint the 5K run one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A 5K run, 20K on the bike, and then 800 meter swim, 750 swim. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, to me, I'm like, that swim is long for me.
Yeah.
And that
That's long
run
for me
is,
now. Trust me, when
yeah,
I back in the water, I very rarely swim now at all. But sometimes in the off season, I'll go for a swim to mix it up, and I think, God, how did I do this every day? Like,
yeah.
how it's so hard.
Likewise, that run, way too long. And
Yeah,
the bike is super short for me. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
give me like, I don't know. I'm trying to think how long I'd want. Probably 80K. I could just about hang on for 80K.
Well, you say that, but then when I first started triathlon and I was doing the sprint distance, and I had no idea, I had no experience whatsoever, didn't know how to train, and I was just going out on the bike with my dad, and I'd do like an hour, maybe 90 minutes, and I was like, I'd get in and I'd be like, wow, that was a big day on the bike. And I think I just look back and I laugh at it now. Yeah, so it's just funny how your standards of things change as you progress.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So obviously, yeah, we talked about your early career and going from swimming to triathlon and then into cycling and specializing there. Like, how did it come about that you ended up on the Cams Basso team? Because that seems to be your first sort of contracted team.
Yeah, so I did my first bike race in 2019, just one of like a
Wow.
local Scottish regional round. And I kind of did that throughout that year, like 2019. I didn't do any like national level stuff, just a lot of local bike races. And then we had COVID for like those, 2020, and then into 2021, I was like, oh, I'd progressed quite a bit, and I thought maybe I would like to do some of the national series stuff. So I was putting my name out there, emailing a lot of the teams that I knew raced the national series, and I did at the end of that year. I did the national hill climb. I think that was 2021. And one of the photographers there, Bob, a man called Bob McGregor, he was the photographer for Cams Basso, and he said, "Oh, I think you'd be really good fit in the team, and I'll give you the contact details of the DS, Simon Howes." So I contacted him straight away, super eager to get involved, and he said, "Oh yeah, I think definitely there's some potential there, but you really need to kind of gain some experience." So he thought it'd be best if I joined their development squad, which was Team on Form, which is still a team in the national series. So for the start of that year, 2021, I raced with them. And did a few of the national rounds, and then I think it was August after I got second in Rydale GP. After that, he was like, "Okay, I think you're ready to join our Cams Basso team." So that's kind of how that all unfolded quite quickly.
Yeah, and clearly it did unfold very quickly, because looking at your results in 2022 is kind of, I think the Americans would call it a banner year for you.
Yeah.
Because you had like Lincoln GP you won. I think ahead of Alice McWilliam, I want to say.
Yeah.
You won the Peaks 2-day ahead of Leah Dixon. So both from the same team at that time. Which is kind of interesting. It's like, I can win if they come second, almost in it. A good result at the RAS. I think that was that the same year or the year before?
No, that was 2022 as well.
Third,
Third, I think, third GC. Yeah.
Yeah, third in GC at RAS, and then Commonwealth Games as well, like getting sixth in the time trial.
Yeah.
Behind another Manx woman as well, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, no, that was special.
Yeah, because it's kind of wild that there seems to be a lot of Manx men who make it across, but not many women. I don't know why that is, but it's kind of, I do find it interesting. But um, here's to hoping that you sort of change that and sort of lead it forward. But yeah, what was that year like for you? Because you're picking up wins here, there, and everywhere, and like quite prestigious races. Like Lincoln GP is not an easy race. I've walked up that hill, and that's enough. Like,
yeah, no, it's a nasty course, but yeah, no, I think so. I graduated in 2021, and I was kind of in that sort of like that transition year of like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing with my life. I have to go into the real world and get a job, or it was kind of at like a crossroads of like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do next year, because university is kind of an excuse to just kind of keep living your dream, really, and whatever that is, doing all your hobbies full time. And yeah, I wasn't really sure what direction to go in, so I actually started studying for my PGDE in secondary psychology education. So I started studying that in August 2021, and then because I knew the Commonwealth Games were coming up the following year, and I found it really difficult to do a full-time course, because that course was 9 till 5, and do the training, compared to my undergrad, which was kind of, you could do a lot on your own time and, you know, just get by. Whereas I thought, oh, this is actually quite hard, and I don't know if I can see myself doing this for the rest of my life. So I stopped. I did 3 months of the course, and then it got to November, the minute I knew that I'd been confirmed to race the Commonwealth Games. Once I got that confirmation, I decided to leave the course. I actually told my parents that I was taking a voluntary suspension, which meant that I wouldn't be able to return, but that was not the case. I just left and said, I'm not coming back. Like, I'm going to give myself a year to just give it everything and see what I can get out of it, and hope that I can get a pro contract for the following year, 2023. So I think that was the year where I was like, right, I'm going to just put 110% into it. Whereas before, I obviously had it, like, I was studying for a degree, and when you kind of get rid of all those things that are distracting you, and you can just fully focus on cycling, it does take you to that another level. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, you know, with the support of my parents. I wasn't working, all I was doing was cycling, and that really, really allowed me to, make those steps and ultimately get those kinds of results.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I guess, like, how did you feel making such a decision? Because I know, like, in a completely different sphere, I've heard from people who do music. I used to listen to a lot of Scroobius Pip, and he said, like, he used to work at HMV, but he just jacked everything in and went, I'm doing music, you know, that's it, no safety net. I've got to make it, else I've got nothing. And, you know, you kind of have to return with your tail between your legs almost. Like, how did it feel for you? Like, I know you said you had the support of your parents, but there's also still that removal of a safety net of uni. You've just gone almost both feet first. You're like, no, cycling done. Like, if it fails, I'll figure something out, I guess. Like, yeah, how was that for you to make that decision?
Yeah, it was really difficult. And I mean, when I look back and in hindsight, I wanted to make it the minute I graduated my undergrad. I didn't really want to go and do another course. I didn't want to go into the real world. But it's kind of like what society tells you it's expected. You know, you finish uni, you get a job, or you then go do a master's, or you further your education. So you just kind of get pushed into that line of like, oh, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'll just do it. When I never really wanted to do it. And so it was, for those 3 months, I was constantly like, oh, I shouldn't have started this course, and this isn't what I want, and I can't see myself doing this. So it was really, really difficult. But I'm also the kind of person that is kind of all or nothing, and I did that with my undergrad. Actually, when I finished my A levels, I was like, oh, I don't really know like what I want to do. I don't know if I want to go to uni. Like, I just want to be an athlete. Like, I'm gonna be a professional triathlete, because I was doing triathlon at the time. And but then when the opportunity of getting a scholarship at Stirling came up, I thought, well, if I get it, like, I'll go there. And when you apply to uni at A level, you get 5 options. I only applied to 1.
Wow.
Giving my mum a poor heart attack, thinking again, no plan B, all your eggs in one basket. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go anywhere else, so why would I apply to go anywhere else? You know? That was my approach. So I'd already done it before. So I had that experience to rely on and think, well, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I can always become a teacher at 30 or 40 or 50, you know, it's like it's always going to be there, but I'm never going to get this opportunity to potentially have like become a professional cyclist, you know, again, like I have to do it now because I'm already coming into the sport late. I don't really have time to be like, oh yeah, I'll maybe just do half and half, you know, I'll see how I get on. And yeah, so that was kind of my mindset, was like it's all or nothing and it has to be now.
Yeah, that's crazy. And like I've kind of mentioned how successful 2022 was, but one of the questions I used to ask this when I did interviews elsewhere, but I kind of stopped doing it. I'm now going to bring it back. How do you actually define success for you? Like if you were, you know, 5 years in the future, or you know, even like 15 years, when I guess you sort of, well, I don't want to reveal your age, it's still considered improper, but you know, when you are likely to be retired, but not necessarily, others have continued after that age, you know, like how will you look back and go, oh yeah, I was successful, or how are you measuring success for yourself?
I think it's really difficult because when I was growing up, I didn't think that this would be my life. You know, I wasn't cycling when I was younger. Like didn't even watch the sport. And I, you know, it was never like, I always thought I would do something in sport. That was like always the goal, whether it was being an athlete myself or a coach, or I just knew that like I wanted to be in that environment. But if you'd have said to me, you know, 5 years ago, you're going to be a professional cyclist, I would have laughed. I would have been like, well, I'm not even going to bike race, you know. It's just crazy to me. So I'm like, I think it's difficult because like sometimes when you've always wanted something your whole life, you kind of know the next step. But for me, everything kind of like a shock, like, oh, now we're here and we're doing this, and I have to pinch myself probably every week, like, oh god, like I'm at this race now, and oh, I didn't even, like, you know, a lot of the girls on my team laughed, they're like, oh, that's like so and so, and this race is famous for this, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, like, because I didn't grow up cycling. So for me,
yeah, I
like,
can imagine that.
yeah,
like
it's to them it's crazy. They're like, how do you not know like this person what they've achieved? And I'm like, you know, I didn't grow up watching it. So for me, a career that's successful will just be one that's I've just enjoyed the whole process of it, you know. And so I already consider it a success just to get to this level and be like, I'm happy, I'm doing something that I love and getting paid for it and traveling the world, and meeting people that I never thought I'd have the chance to meet, and being teammates and friends of them. And yeah, so to me it's already a success, and I don't really like to look too far ahead because, like I said, like 5 years ago, this wasn't even on my radar of being in this. And so I know how quickly things can change, good, like for good and for bad. So I'm just trying to live more in the short term, and yeah, just kind of enjoy the process rather than have a certain outcome if I want, you know, to win this many races or to be a national champion or this, you know. I just kind of am like, we'll just see where it takes, because I also don't want to kind of set my own ceiling, if that makes sense. You know, like then I feel like, oh, if I achieve that, then I'll be content. And I think being content is probably the biggest downfall for most people, because then it kind of like, oh, well, I achieved that, so I can retire now. Whereas for me, I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm capable of achieving, so we'll just see how far we get.
Yeah, I just have visions of you to like turning up to Omloop and being told like, oh, we'll be going up the Gerardsbergen today, and you're like, and what's that? Like,
yeah, that is honestly, this is a weekly occurrence for me. Yeah. Oh,
really?
I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was called that. Or yeah, honestly, it's actually quite embarrassing. So I just have to laugh at it.
Oh, it's amazing though. Like, there's something kind of pure about that naivety, or like, I guess you get to experience everything for the first time though, and see everything with wondrous eyes that, you know, people like me who've been kind of grown up as a fan of the sport since like, oh, too many years now. I'm trying to do the maths, and it hurts my head. 16 years that I've been following the sport, like, yeah,
So you
things
know a
like,
lot, you know so much more than me. I honestly, like last year, I mean, even now, this is my second year with the team, and now I'm still doing races for the first time, or hearing about races, you know, oh, I didn't, oh, like, and then I get there and I'm like, oh, wow, this is like, and sometimes I think, yeah, the naivety is great, because to me, everything's amazing. I'm like, oh, this is cool, like this new experience, you know, but then also it's nice in a way because I feel like if I'd have known almost like how big some of these races are or how special some of these races are, that maybe I'd find myself a little bit more overwhelmed and struggle with the pressure. But to me, I can kind of go in with like, yeah, fresh eyes and just like no weight on my shoulders. Like I said, 5 years ago, I would have thought I would never be here. I wouldn't even know what the journey would look like. So to me, everything's just super exciting and fresh.
yeah, I guess there's a sort of blissful element to it. As you said, like it stops you feeling pressure because you're like, you don't know what like the tourmalet is. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, you just turn up and like,
Yeah.
oh, you're going up the mountain today? Okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
and
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of, they say that a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, and
Yeah.
without that knowledge, it's great. You're unencumbered, and that allows you freedom.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this is now your second year with a team. Like, how did that come about? I assume on some level they saw your results the previous year for Cams Basso and like, oh, we've got to check her out. But I also assume that they weren't the only ones looking at people's results, because those are great results. You know, you don't get
Yeah.
6th at Commonwealth Games, you know, for free. It's not just given out on the, you know, with cereal boxes. You've got to be good.
Yeah, no, it was again an unconventional way of getting into the team because I had that 2022 year with Cams Basso, and I then had actually signed in the summer of 2022 originally with another team, a continental team, for 2 years, so for 2023 and 2024. And then unfortunately in the November of 2022, a week before our training camp with this team, they lost their sponsorship, and everything was kind of up in the air of what was going to happen. Were the team going to fold completely, or were we still going to be able to continue but with a smaller budget, and were we going to get the races that we'd been initially promised? So it was really, really sad, actually, and super stressful, because the end of November you're thinking, oh my god, like all the teams are full, where am I going to go? And I kind of had also this plan of like, right, I've done like a year and a half with Cams Basso. I want to go to this team, which are also continental, but a bit higher level, bit bigger races. I can get 2 years of really, really good experience with them. And then my plan was like, then I think I'll be ready for the world tour after that, you know, come 2025. Because like I said, I had no real race experience. And then yeah, the end of November, that news came about. We were all kind of told, you're free to, you know, look for other teams, and because we can't promise you what's going to happen. So I also didn't know anyone in the cycling world really, you know, to reach out to be like, oh, can you? I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anything. So I kind of, to give the team the benefit of the doubt, I didn't do anything for the first week. I thought, no, you know what, it's going to be fine. They're going to figure it out. They're going to get a new sponsor and we're going to carry on. And then still no news about what 2023 is going to look like. And I thought, I really need to kind of look after myself now and try and find something. I've given up a whole year for this, and I can't be left with nothing for it. So I actually contacted, so then one of the staff members from that continental team they said, oh yeah, no, I know some people at DSM, and maybe they can, you know, I can't promise you anything, but they'll have a look at your data, and we'll see what happens. And then so I was put in contact with them, and they had a look at my data. They were happy with what they saw potential, and then 2 days later we had a call, an interview, and I was like, oh, I don't want to get my hopes up, because you know, you just never know what's going to happen. but I was feeling really positive about it. I loved the whole philosophy of the team and their culture and everything that we'd spoken about in the interview. And then so then 3 days later they said, yeah, great, we'll have you, and do you want, and training camp starts next week. And I
Okay.
and I was just like, honestly, I was like, oh my god, like how has this come about? But I was so excited, but I was honestly terrified as well, because I thought, I don't know if I'm ready for this, like it's a big step up. So yeah, but again, as I did with everything, just jumped straight in, flew straight out to Spain 5-6 days later and was on the team training camp.
Wow. And what was that like? Because obviously you won't have a team kit yet, and even if you did, UCI wouldn't let you wear it anyway. You've got to just train in Cam's Basso kit, and I assume that makes you sort of stand out on a training camp. But you are the newcomer here. Like,
I mean, I felt really lucky because, again, being blissfully unaware, I didn't really, when I raced that year before, I wasn't really looking at other teams too much. I didn't actually, in all honesty, I didn't really know who raced for the team. I obviously knew Pfeiffer Georgie, she's British, and so I knew her, but I didn't really know any of the girls or what their qualities were or what they were like. And luckily as well, that year of 2023, DSM had signed, I think there was 7 of us that were new, so it was kind of almost like a new team, which was really nice because I wasn't like the only one coming in not knowing what to expect. So yeah, that was really, really, and everybody was super welcoming, it was nice. It was just, to be honest, like, as crazy as it sounds, it felt like I'd been there my whole life and known these people, which felt right, considering how crazy it all unfolded in the space of like 5-6 days, going from no team to being on this team. So I felt like I kind of landed on my feet, really.
Yeah, it definitely sounds it. It's incredible how quickly things can turn around. And I'm glad you're there. How have you kind of adjusted to the step up? Because obviously, going from continental and mixing UCI races with kind of amateur races or elite, but not UCI. So I don't know how best to classify them, but you kind of get what I'm angling at. To then racing World Tour and doing things like the Giro d'Onne, if you can call it a Grand Tour, I don't know. It's kind of, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I know.
I don't want to compare men's and women's racing and make them kind of one is a spin-off of another, but equally it kind of does give a good grounding to the prestige and the intensity of the racing and how hard it is, because it's 10 days in a row. Like, that's not easy. Or 9 days was it that year because of the time trial. But what's it like going from one to the other? Because to me that seems like a huge step.
Yeah, and to be honest, my first 6 months were I found really, really difficult adjusting to that lifestyle and of being a fully fledged professional on a World Tour team, one of the best teams in the World Tour as well. I just almost had such a feeling of like imposter syndrome that I really, really struggled with for those like first 3 to 6 months. I was like, how did I get here? Everything's happened so fast, in the space of a year. Like, my life's changed. I moved to the Netherlands, left my family behind, and literally everything had like changed. I'd fully committed to being a part of the team and living this life, which, as I said, I never even dreamt of. So it was quite, I did really, really struggle in the beginning, but as I said, I kind of landed on my feet with this team, and that they're known for like how good they are at developing young riders. And there was never that, the only pressure that I had on my shoulders was from myself. And for them, it was just, we know you're inexperienced. We just want you to just get stuck in and give everything 110%. And we don't expect anything. We just, just learn from the, those experienced riders in the team, and just kind of, just enjoy it. So, like I said, that pressure only ever came from within, and I was battling back and forth like, oh, how am I at this race, and this is really hard, and I don't know if I deserve to have this jersey on my shoulders, and it was just really difficult. And then I kind of wasn't enjoying it as a result of it. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is actually what I wanted now. This is really hard. Like, this went from a hobby to be now a job, and it was all too serious, I think. Again, all coming from myself. And then in the summer, I kind of just had a sort of a self-reflection of like, you know what, like, you're so lucky to be in the position you're in. The least you can do is enjoy it and stop giving yourself such a hard time, because that's only gonna stint your development and your progression in the sport. If you I was just thinking back to like that year from 2021 to 2022, and the progress all came just because of the love of how much I was loving riding my bike. I didn't take it too seriously. I just loved it. And I was having the best time on Cam's Basso, and that happiness brought the success. So I just was like, I just need to get myself back into that sort of headspace. And then, from like the summer, like the Giro, and then going into Tour of Scandinavia in that August, like everything started to click and fall into place a little bit. And I think also just getting to know the team, getting to know your teammates and developing those relationships. I started to feel like part of the family that is DSM. So that really, really helped. And then, that's just allowed me to go from strength to strength into this year. And I'm taking a much more relaxed approach, and just enjoying it.
Yeah, and was the women's tour like before or after that self-reflection? Because I'm curious about timelines and the chronology, I guess.
The women's tour is in which?
The British one, sorry. Because I think they have to. Yeah,
I didn't race the British one. I never raced with DSM because it wasn't on last year. I raced that with Cams.
Of course, yes. I apologise.
No. Thankfully, it's back this year. Thankfully, because it's such a brilliant race. Yeah.
They have a delivery team. I'm hoping the delivery team isn't Yodel. Otherwise, it'll be like round the back of someone else's hedge, and you'll just get a photo of someone's front door that may or may not be yours.
Yeah.
But no, like, I was just curious because I picked that out as a result. I was like, you were the best Brit that year at 15th on GC, and again, that's not something that comes easy. But I guess I picked the wrong year, and apologies for going down the wrong route there. But like, it's kind of incredible to see. I guess that mind shift has kind of really helped you. And it's almost, is it a back to basics approach of, as you said, like, just get back to enjoying it? This is why I cycle, is to have fun.
I think it's just that kind of like, I needed to really ground myself. I was a bit overwhelmed by all the change that had happened in my life in the last year. Finishing uni, being on one team to then being on a new team, to moving countries. Like, it was a lot, and I didn't really know how to handle it. And also, like I said, living a life that was, I think it was like a lot of people say, it's difficult when something does go from being your hobby to your job, and I had to kind of like check myself sometime and be like, but then I also never wanted it to feel like a job, which it doesn't, now. But in the beginning, I was just putting so much pressure on myself. Like, I need to deliver. I need to do my teammates justice, do the team justice. They've kind of offered me such an incredible opportunity. I need to give something back to them to show them that it was worth it. And just kind of forgetting that really, like, what is it all about? And what got me there was just having fun. So and then I also think it helps that I do have my degree is in psychology, so I had to always kind of think back, I could give a lot of nice, good advice, and I wasn't taking it for myself a lot of the time. So that really helped, actually. I could rely back to all the things that I learned throughout my degree to get me through those first big life changes in those first few months.
Yeah. Have you ever then, because I think I've probably asked someone else this from a similar background, where, do you ever get to a stage where someone's trying to coach you and you're like, oh, that's a psychological trick they're using on me? I know how this ends. And you go like, kind of call them out on it, or go, actually, you need to frame it this way to make this particular like method or tactic works only if you do this, and kind of go almost meta psychological on them.
Yeah, no, I think I probably do it more to other people than they do it to me. I think I like to I try and read people, or I analyze their behavior, and I think, oh, like this makes sense. And yeah, I think I think a lot of my own head, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a really bad thing. So yeah, I probably do it more to other people. I probably overthink things, and yeah, they're deeper than what they are a lot of the time. But yeah, no, I'm glad I have that experience and that education, because I definitely think that it's helped me in sport. And it's definitely shaped my mindset when it comes to especially going through those difficult times. It's easier to navigate the successful, happy times, but those more challenging ones can be difficult to get through. So it's nice to be able to rely on that experience.
Yeah, and they're often the ones that shape us more than the happy times. Speaking of happy times, now you've had that kind of mind shift or mindset shift. I keep just eliding everything together. What are the kind of goals, ambitions, even just races for this year? Like, yeah, where are you hoping to show your talents?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't actually know the second half of what my year will look like just yet. I only know the next like month or so. So yeah, I'm hoping it'd be really nice, in the summer to do races like the Giro again. That was one of my favorite races last year. And it also really plays to my qualities as a rider, being able to ride, like say, for 8 to 9 stages back to back. That's kind of where my strengths are. So I'd love to do races like that again. But I'm also really enjoying this year doing a similar calendar, but also like there's new experiences. Like I did obviously Trofeo Binda at the weekend. That was really nice. I've got Flèche Wallonne coming up, which is new for me. I did Liège last year, which was just incredible, like super special race. But I'm just enjoying kind of like putting my toes in everything. I know what my qualities are as a rider, but being not so experienced, I also don't want to pigeonhole myself and say, oh, I'm a climber, or I'm a GC rider, or I'm a time trialist. I don't know. Like, I just want to do a bit of everything, and just kind of see what I enjoy. But I definitely enjoy more of the stage racing and the hillier sort of terrain. So yeah, races like Tour de Suisse and, like I said, the Giro, they're where my comfort zone is, I would say, more of my favourite type. So yeah, hopefully I get to do more of races like that this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think Flèche Wallonne is kind of, the women's version is one of my favourite races of the year, and the men's version is one of my least favourite races of the year.
Oh really?
Just because, well, just in the men's, it's all going to stay together. There's going to be a group of about 90 that hit the bottom of the Mur, and then someone will win. And it's kind of like Milan-San Remo, but somehow worse. In terms of like, I love Milan-San Remo because it's got like the best last 10 kilometers. The Mur is so short. I know it's steep, but it's the best last 5 minutes of a race. But before then, everything kind of feels inconsequential. But in women's racing, it's a lot more open, and like you end up with little splinter groups. Like I think there's only a group of 20 that come into it sometimes, and it's just a lot more dynamic as a race. So I prefer that version than the men's.
No, I think as well. I think women's, and I love watching men's cycling as well. I watch all cycling now, but I definitely think that women's racing is, like as you say, a little bit less predictable. Can be much more aggressive sometimes, and I love that about it. And I think that, as you say, it's nice that now we're getting the coverage more coverage as well into longer into the race. You can see like that and see more of the role that like not just like the top 10 get, but also what their teammates have to do to enable them to win the race. And so that's why when people always say, oh, do you think that women will eventually get like 3-week grand tours and stuff, and part of me, I hope not. Like it'd be nice, I think we could do like 10 to 14 like 2-week tours, and but I think it could potentially kill the spontaneity, the unpredictableness of women's racing, and I'm just really glad that now it's getting the limelight that it deserves, and we've got, you know, Yves Norin Tour de France, and that showed how successful and how exciting women's racing can be. Not to take anything away from men's cycling, of course, but yeah, it's just different, I think.
Yeah, and that difference should be celebrated, as should, I think, pretty much all differences in life should be celebrated, because that's where strength comes in, rather than using, you know, diversity as an exclusionary point. I feel it should be more inclusive, but that's just my 2 cents. You know, and as you said about the Grand Tours, like, I agree, like, women don't need it to be 3 weeks. If there's, you know, demand for it, great, but equally women can do their own thing. You don't have to have a women's, you know, comparison to every race. Like, you've got was it the Omloop Het Hageland? You know, that doesn't exist in the men's, and that's beautiful. Likewise, Alfredo Binda just doesn't exist on the men's side, and great. You know, you get your own little races. Well, not little, but you know what I mean.
No, exactly. Yeah,
you get your own standalone races, and they all have their own identity, and I think that's great. So yeah, the last question, or kind of section, just like any social media plugs, you know, whether that's for yourself, for the team, anything else you want to mention to look out for, any other, you know, odds and sods, if you will.
Yeah, no, I mean, super original, I guess, and super boring. You can find me on social media, Instagram. I was going to say Twitter, but it's X. Terrible for that now. Just Becky Storrie, and definitely the team's Instagram. They're a lot more up to date on their socials than I am. DSM Firmenich-Post NL. We're always posting super exciting stuff, and on YouTube as well, where you can watch a lot of our, especially like the bigger races, you know, the Tour de France Femme and the Giro. We do like a lot of series documenting you can watch kind of behind the scenes, which even though I'm there for a lot of them, I really, really enjoy watching, being like, oh, this is like, it's, you know, it's nice to watch back, and they always have super exciting stuff on Instagram or YouTube or X you can find.
Oh, lovely. Well, all of those will have appeared in the last sort of 15 seconds of us chatting on the video. So you'll have seen all those links, and there'll also be links in the show notes. Other than that, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me.
Well, there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that episode as much as I did recording it. As I said, Becca's a great person. I hope you like it. I hope we get to see her in the Ardennes Classics. I think DSM usually have a good team for all sorts of terrain, as we will have seen. They're always mixing it around in the Cobble Classics. Now it's the turn of the Ardennes by the time this comes out. I think Roubaix is this coming weekend, as of speaking right now. But we're going to have Amstel Gold, we're going to have La Flèche Wallonne, we're going to have Liège, Bastogne-Liège. All those types of races I think suit Becky, and hopefully we get to see how she does.